Hello and welcome. I am the Restless Kaiser.
No, I'm Johnny B.
I'm Wooly Mike.
I'm Seventh Son.
But together we are
Yodeling for
Advantage.
Yodeling.
What a beautiful sound that is. Harry was here, said a good evening. Josh Wood is here. Miniature Wargaming. Oh, that's Ken. Hello, Ken. Sorry. How are you doing, buddy? Watching the middle of a field surrounded by nipples at work. Oh, hippies. Sorry. Hippies. More on that later, perhaps. Nick from Clueless Games. Rosie is here. Hello, Rosie. Subs is here. Subs has taken a risky choice tonight in his drinking game. He's only going to take a shot when we say Warhammer Plus or Pop-Tart. So I think he's had the one drink, and that's going to be it.
Wow,
I don't think Warhammer Plus is going to be a thing. What have we got? Tony Halton is here. Allard is here. Oh, gosh, there's millions of people here as I go down. They're all talking to each other. E.S. Taylor is here. Little Legions. Hello there. Tech Saint. Friends of General Haig. Good evening, sir.
Awesome.
Tony Halton, Alan. Someone again. I blame Martin for spending 2 hours after work tonight, knocking walls down in the rain, getting ready for the new shed. It's all your fault. Man.
Yeah, I know. I get blamed for everything now. It's great. The fuel crisis, that's my fault.
Yep.
That's it.
Tony Halton talking about Judge Dredd there. We're definitely looking at Judge Dredd, mainly for me because crocodiles, right? I'm interested in crocodile men.
What are they called? Clegs or something?
Clegs or something like that, yeah. We are indeed modding for advantage. Just minis are quite nice. The resin is a bit bendy, so be careful when you remove the mold lines and don't give them to John. Ferriby Viking. Hello there. Are you new here? I think you might be. Right then, so to give you a bit of an overview of what we're going to do tonight, went to that. Martin's going to introduce himself in a minute. We are going to talk a little bit about the Second Punic War, the opening phases. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of narrative and what happens, and then Martin is going to show us his beautiful miniatures that he's been painting, because it's a Carthaginian army, but it's set for a particular battlefield, and it looks quite distinctive because of that. So I like that. Clegs, he says that's what it is. All right, so Martin, I can't believe that anyone doesn't know who you are, but just in case they don't, why don't you introduce yourself to the beautiful people at home? Where can they find you? What do you do?
My name is Martin, otherwise known as Seventh Son on YouTube, and you can find me and my channel if you type in Seventh Son Wargaming on YouTube, and I just make lots of different wargaming painting videos, mainly focusing on historical stuff. So that's pretty much it. And of course, I'm a member of the Plastic Crack podcast, which goes out on Monday nights. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do. But I try to do lots of different historical projects, and but also do a bit of history around them as well, not just modeling videos. So if I do a video about a certain commander, I'll try to do some history and get some primary source information in there as well. If the people who are interested, and those that aren't interested can just watch a bit about the painting and the miniature, and how then I roll really badly and lose said commander after I've spent ages talking about how good he is or how he won everything.
Epic. That's pretty
that's
darn
Martin
cool.
from Seven Son or the Plastic Crowd podcast. They're also running a war game show in a couple of weeks. Is that right?
We are. Yes,
in like a week and a half.
It's yes, it is. Thank you for reminding me. It's 10 days away till not. The thing is as well, they say it's the first time that apart from one of them we've all met in one room, so we could all hate each other in person. So that would just be the end of it. No, so yes, it started out on the podcast. Lots of people, we kept on joking, we're going to meet up at the end of this and have a game. And then a lot of people got in on it and said, can we come along? We'd love to be there. And we've sort of made the joke going, we'll do a convention, we'll do a wargaming show. And my wife happened to be in the background. She went, what are you going to call it? CrackCon. And then everyone was like, why not? Yeah. Why not? So the trick was finding somewhere that would let us call it that. and actually, wait a minute, but no, it was funny enough. I did suggest doing it around the corner, and when I just looked at like these kind of events they put on. I didn't even bother approaching them. It's just not going to happen. But yeah, so it's been held at Boards and Swords Hobby in Derby, and we've got a day of wargaming, quite a lot of different games, meet up, and some surprises, raffle, painting competition, and then we're all going to go to the pub afterwards. We've all worked out we're all staying in the same travel lodge as well. So it's like 30 sort of middle-aged war gamers staying in this travel lodge opposite the place. So it's not going to be quite like a stag do, but I don't know what it'll be, whether we're going to take over the foyer and try and have try and have some kind of game.
Rather than being Larry and having a load of prostitutes, you're gonna be sat there playing, I don't know, Magic the Gathering at midnight in the bar.
pretty much. Although we did say that, we got reminded everyone that, if they, I was looking at the crate, if they don't bring super glue, and I'm pretty sure we'll be able to find some nearby because there's got a lot of bridges, so we can go and get some just for any of those broken models that are just happen to snap on route. But no, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Slightly terrifying.
Sounds great, and it's functioning. It's very much a community project, right? It's like people from the community are putting on games and scenery and
we've got 11 separate games, including Black Powder, Sharp Practice, Bolt Action, the Middle-earth strategy battle game, Battle Group, Mortal Gods. There was Muskets and Tomahawks, and everyone's bringing them in. It's basically all pick up and play. So everybody's like hosting a game, and everyone else can just come along. The game I'm running is a 4v4 Black Powder Napoleonic game. I'm doing that with Ken, and we're gonna. But the great thing is that I think only one of them's actually played Black Powder before, one of the participants. So it's going to be their first experience of Black Powder. Is going to be a massive participation game. But people are going to drop in and drop out. We got Stuart from the Out the Frying Pan podcast. He does all the awesome Middle-earth content. He's putting demo games of Middle-earth on. I'm not quite sure what he's running. We've got a lot of people bringing sort of set scenario pieces. So Miller, he's bringing a Star Fort to host an ECW get pike and shot game that he's built.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be quite cool.
Does sound cool.
Sounds great. And I, as I say, I really like the idea that it's like the people that are coming are involved in it. All right. So, well, should we get into the meat of it? We've not said what we're hobbying. Gosh, I know I'd missed something. I have got an M36 Jackson here that I'm trying to get some paint on. I like to paint my US World War II in brown violet. That seems to be the right kind of green. Once you get a bit of a kind of what do they call it? The canvas, wash, the Vallejo canvas, dry brush, kind of brings it out. It's a bit like Zandri Dust.
Very nice.
Yeah. Yodeling for advantage. That is what John was doing right there. Yeah, he can do that. MTG reference is funny. I just started playing MTG in August. You're about 20 years too late, mate. I guess 28 years late is better than never. Yeah. I remember the small hobby shops getting rid of all of the racks of individual Grenadier and Ralph Arthur miniatures, and the place is just being taken over by Magic, which is why I've always hated it.
I did play in tournaments for a while and got within the top 1,000 ranking in the country, but then they just brought out another edition, was so expensive I stopped.
Yeah, I very much
everyone's dabbled with Magic, I'm sure, at some point. It's a natural path. I am modelling some other things. I'm trying desperately to avoid doing any SPQR stuff because I'm quite sick of losing, if I'm honest. So I'm avoiding that. You can have your war dogs, that's fine. Instead, I'm doing the Disciples, the Red Redemption, you see, because they were in one of the Crusades in Warhammer, that is.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's what that is. I've forgotten your name. Woolly Mike. There's too many Mikes. Woolly Mike, what are you doing tonight?
I'm painting the Jihar 95 from the Island Assault set. I managed to make both turrets out of the set with a little bit of fettling. So I'm putting the camouflage on the main tank, ready to start playing the Island Assault.
That's the new Bolt Action starter set, right?
Yeah.
For anyone that didn't know.
Available for modelling for advantage.
That is a fact.
Phil. And what is the Seventh Son up to tonight?
I am painting up Victrix Normans as first Crusaders.
Oh, they were gorgeous. I saw your little video of your first 3 bases.
Yeah, I made the mistake of starting them before I finished the last project. I thought I'd get all the stuff in. Oh, I'll have a look at these. I'll build one. I'll build 3 bases worth. I'll build another 20, and the other project is still just sitting there waiting for 3 guys to be finished. But they'll get done at some point.
Ooh, that's always the way there.
Speaking of buying things from Modelling for Advantage, Alid says he's going to be buying the Black Powder starter set from Mrs. K after CrackCon. I think there probably won't be a better advert for Black Powder than going and seeing people who really love the game with beautiful miniatures playing a massive game that they've spent all day doing with 8 people. So I'm going to shill for a moment, seeing as we've opened that door. For anyone that was waiting, this is now back in stock on the Modelling for Advantage website. I should have checked the bloody price, shouldn't I? Our stuff is 15% off retail, but there is a postage charge. And to that end, new experiment, new supplier, we can now provide you with Victrix. So our first ones, we went for the exciting ones, the African war elephant, because Martin's going to show you a beautiful one later. This one comes with a separate crew sprue, which allows you to use it as Numidian, Roman, or I think there's even Ptolemaic Egyptian crew in there.
There's Ptolemaic in there, and there's another one. There's because all the bodies I've cut them out to use them as skirmishers.
Oh, sweet.
The Celtic Chariot, this is an amazing kit. If you didn't see our review of it, especially the Boudica and the Druid model are a really nice addition. And then finally, just because John doesn't actually have any decent heroes in SPQR, we've gone for the Imperial Roman generals, so you can get somebody on a horse in the hope that he might actually win a fight.
It's never going to happen.
But that is the start of us providing Victrix as well. I'm going to say that I've yet to see a Victrix kit that I wasn't really pleased with. They're not the cheapest figures in the world, but they're not outrageously expensive either.
You get a lot for your money. You do get a lot.
I was about to say, the buying point's a little bit higher than 25 quid, but that's because you get like double the amount of models that you normally would. So it's pretty good. I mean, what was that? You had your Normans, and there was 60 in there, wasn't there?
There's 60 Normans for just shy of 30. Just shy of 30.
Just shy of 30 quid.
Because I didn't get it from Victrix. I went somewhere else.
Of course.
And so, just shy of 30. But that's going to be, because I'm doing them basically units of 15. So that's 4 units done. As a commander, that's effectively a brigade. Is it a brigade? Battle? Whatever you want to call it at that point. But they're so varied as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, like you could get the old guard, which I did from the Napoleonics, you get 16. They're all basically, there's like 2 poses. But these you can just build up any way you want and just get them. Well, you could buy it, and that's a saga army done. More than a saga army, basically. So they are good. I mean, I think that elephant kit, and I've said before that the elephant kit I think is one of the best wargaming kits that I've ever had, that I've put together. These Normans are giving them a run for the money, though. These Normans are wicked. I do like these.
Subs asked, it is an African elephant, not an Indian elephant. And shows you war elephant. Does that involve an old trick of turning your trouser pockets out?
Get your Pop-Tarts out for the lads.
I think if John ever gets an elephant in one of his armies, he might. Right, so Martin, let's talk. If I may, see if I can do the screen share thing. Let's talk about the Second Punic War. Get yourself sit down comfortably and let the old men tell you a story. So, Second Punic War, Martin. Are you able to give them a sort of a background to the start of the Second Punic War?
The short version,
the short version.
Don't mess with Carthage, I think, is the I mean, everyone knows, and I think it's one of the great things about your history is like you can just say Hannibal, and everyone pretty much knows. You don't have to say the Great or something like that, or the Terrible. Just Hannibal. It's not even it's just Hannibal, and everyone sort of knows who he is or has a rough idea of something that happened, whether that's just taking the elephants over the Alps, but everyone pretty much knows that he, came within a hair's breadth of, smashing. And it was basically the Second Punic War pretty much is the culmination for the control of who's going to control the Mediterranean at this point.
And frankly, which culture will dominate Western civilization?
Yeah. Wow.
If the war had gone the other way, we wouldn't talk about Marcus Aurelius or Augustus, the divine Augustus, we'd be talking about Hamilcar and so forth.
And that's
fundamentally a different culture, I think.
And it's such an I mean, obviously, if you go back to original sources, they can be a little bit dry if you're reading these things. But it's got everything. It's got a blood debt, blood feuds, battles, betrayal, long marches, behind the scenes skullduggery, betrayal. It's a fantastic story. But effectively, Hannibal's father, Hamilcar Barca, makes his son swear to never capitulate to Rome and effectively to make Rome pay, and to never give in. And Hannibal sort of took that and ran with it. And the main thing is that Hannibal basically, Carthage is in North Africa, but Hannibal grew up in Spain. And his father was effectively he ruled Spain on behalf of Carthage, after when he's eventually dies and he says, don't, never give in to Rome, Hannibal took that and certainly didn't, and went further than anyone else, and probably came the closest to destroying the Romans up until the crisis in the later part of the Roman Empire. 650
years later.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of, because this is the Second Punic War. There had been a First Punic War, where arguably, and I think this is one of these things, it's very strong parallels to Nazi Germany in a bizarre way, because Carthage lives with the stab in the back theory. It believes that its political leaders were just not prepared to put the money forwards that they needed to keep the armies in the field, and they gave up when they could have won.
Yeah,
because the armies are not necessarily losing because the Romans are better. The armies are losing because they're just not getting the supplies and the replacements that they need. And Hannibal's father is absolutely determined to never do this again. And he's been made a general, and he goes to Spain and founds a new Carthaginian empire in Spain, Carthago Nova. Everything we know about Carthage is in Latin because the Romans in 146 BC, in the Third Punic War, destroyed Carthaginian culture, language, all of it gone forever. So we call even New Carthage, we know as Carthago Nova, which is Latin, not Punic, which is their culture.
Yeah.
If I use the term Punic or Phoenician, that's the culture group that the Carthaginians belong to. And a lot of the Roman literature, it calls the Carthaginians Phoenicians because that's the type of people they are, their race or whatever.
They're great traders. All their wealth comes from trade, from the ports, and for basically owning. I mean, when Carthage was at its power, Rome was still like a little village on top of a hill, and they're building everything up, and then eventually these guys who like live near the Tiber suddenly rise to sort of challenge them, and it really Sicily becomes sort of this massive point of tension between the two of them. Obviously they lose. The First Punic War happens, and as you say, they don't ever really consider themselves beaten, or is you're right, is that the ruling class just gave in too easily. We're not beaten
because they're merchants, and it was cheaper to just pay Rome off than it was to keep fighting them. So
that reminds me of something else we were talking about earlier. It's a common thing in history. So that's it. They just pay off. But the Romans make them pay reparations, and they think that they put enough vast reparations, and they did it and thought, we're going to cripple them. They will never rise to they pay it off. Not only do they pay it off, they pay it off and then build a military bigger than the Romans.
Wow.
And you can, if you really want to see how well they logistically they were prepared. If you have a look at it's Tunis, Carthage, you'll see it in Tunis, and you can still see the Carthaginian port, and it had an inner port and outer port. You can still see all the boat sheds if you zoom in on Google Earth. And effectively, what they I was reading one book and said that the way it was built was effectively you couldn't get into it. It was hidden from Roman spies. So there was like an inner port and an outer port. So the outer port was where all the trade fleets were, and then there was an inner port where there was a very small causeway, canal kind of thing to get to it.
Because they weren't supposed to build warships as part of the treaty.
So you've got all of these you've got covered boat sheds, not those drones, those Roman drones that could have clearly seen it. But, exactly. So there's no Roman just comes wandering in and just sees half a dozen galleys like fully fully tooled up and ready to go. And then when they decide to go again, they've also got all the money to pay for all the mercenaries and start convincing people, no, you should really fight for Carthage because Rome sucks.
But critically, what Hannibal's father principally has done. So if you see on the map, this is how, to give you an indication of how early days of Rome this is. You'll see Rome isn't even all of Italy yet. Not yet. And this bit in the top left of Rome, the Po Valley, is going to become really important in this campaign. It's going to be where the first major battles will start. But Carthage, between the First and Second Punic Wars, built this empire in Spain, this purple bit on the map over here. And part of the reason for doing that is the thing to understand about ancient warfare is quite how much provinces of the empires are invested in the commanders that control them. There isn't the kind of administration that we have today. So the commander of that region collects its taxes and basically does what he likes with it. And so Hannibal's father's motivation for building up this empire in Spain is to pay for the war with Rome that he knows that the judges and the magistrates, which are the political classes of Carthage, will not pay for. He's going to get an independent source that's going to fuel an army. So this empire has been built up in Spain with a combination of Spanish mercenaries and African troops. And the Libo-Phoenician army is very interesting because the Phoenicians themselves are Middle Eastern, but the population of Carthage, this city has been there for 600-700 years. Its population is very mixed, so that there are local tribes people. Your Numidians are black, and your Libo-Phoenicians, which are the citizens, look much more like modern North Africans. They're a mixture of different races. There, so you've got a really exotic and mixed army. Anyway, in 219 BC, this peace between Rome and Carthage is going to end because Hannibal's father has died. He's been elected as chief guy of the army in Spain, which the other generals choose someone, and he's like, right, I'm gonna fucking get Rome now. I'm gonna get them back. I'm gonna do what my whole life has been waiting for this moment. We're gonna do it.
I can't help but feel a bit of it was just due to the fact that his father. I mean, there's two. Appian says that his father just fell off his horse and drowned, whereas other people just say, "Oh, he died just fighting some unnamed tribe." So I kind of that Hannibal's obviously saying, so, he geared up for this war and it never happened. So he was
but his father has been making him swear blood oath since he was a baby, practically. That he's going to fight Rome
every day. You will do a mantra.
Yeah. And before you eat your dinner, son, remember this: kill the fucking Romans. So what he's done is he's engineered a situation where they're on the Ebro, this river in the north of Spain, where the purple line ends. That's considered the boundary between Rome's sphere of influence and Carthage's sphere of influence. And one of the Spanish towns there is called Saguntum, and it's within this Roman sphere of influence. But Carthage has attacked it. Now, this is a very interesting battle because this is right at the beginning of Hannibal's time in charge. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to make sure that his rear lines, his lines of supply and communication, are intact before he goes and invades them. He's finishing the problems in Spain, and then he's going to go to Italy. And this city has been a particular nuisance to him. But he actually sieges it for about 8 months. It takes a long time, and it's not a Roman settlement. And during the course of this, eventually they break in and they sack the city. But it's incredibly unsophisticated and not a very successful battle. And I think this is important to remember when we come to later in Hannibal's time, that walled cities are still relatively rare at this period of the ancient world and relatively big. And when we think about why Hannibal doesn't take Rome, well, it took him 8 months to lay siege to a much smaller walled city in Spain. And as much as we think he's a great commander, this isn't a problem. I'm not actually sure that Hannibal's army is very good at that sort of thing. I don't think they have the skills or have the background. Indeed, one of the ways that Carthage deals with its client states in North Africa is if they rebel, and this is a very long standing empire, they rebel periodically and they get put down. The first thing the Carthaginians do is tear down the walls. and remove their right to have walls. So they obviously, I think walls are a bigger deal than we think they are now. But anyway, so he has this big siege at Saguntum, and it's a bit of a bloodbath, and he's got himself an army of about 65,000 men, which is a pretty big army. But he leaves 2 different detachments. It is a detachment of about 15,000 on the River Ebro to stop the Romans breaking into Spain, and another group further down to subdue any tribes that kick up. And these are with like his brother and his cousin.
Yeah, you probably say as well that they did put to death every single adult in Saguntum. Because he gave supposedly he gave them an offer. So they took, and the way he deals with the defenses is he took them out eventually one at a time. He also took a javelin at some point, and he was really badly wounded and had to. They had the siege went on for even more weeks while they waited for him to recover, and no one wanted to attack while Hannibal was recovering. But he basically told the defenders that everyone could leave, and they're allowed to take 2 garments with them. They refused, so he killed them all. That was wow. You can leave. You can take 2. Yeah, take your hat and your shirt. No.
That's crazy.
I mean, to be fair, up until about 1600, that's fairly normal practice. Yeah. You give city terms of surrender, and they need to understand is if they don't surrender and you have to siege them, you're going to kill them all when you get in. That's pretty monstrous by modern standards, but that's fairly common practice.
The norm back then. And they ate babies. Carthage. That's Carthage.
Carthage sacrificed babies to their own gods. The Tophet. We can come on to that if there's time, Martin. But we haven't actually started the Punic Wars yet.
Hurry up, man! He's marched up. He's taken this village. He's killed everyone because he's a nasty.
So Rome says, send Hannibal to Rome so we can punish him for his crimes. This is to Carthage, the Carthaginian magistrates, or there'll be war. The magistrates are like, fuck it, let's go to war this time. So they do. So Hannibal crosses the Ebro, and he marches across the Pyrenees, and he's got, as I say, about 65,000 men and 40 elephants, something like that. Now, Rome knows that he's walking this way. By the way, this is from basically Barcelona to Italy on foot with 60,000 people and some elephants. That's his plan. It's a solid plan, right? It's a long way to go. So Rome knows about this. So Rome elects 2 consuls in the year 2018, and it elects a smart one called Scipio, the elder, Scipio, Publius Cornelius Scipio, and the stupid one, who is called Tiberius Sempronius Longus. I needed to just check that because it's generally just Longus is what he's often called. But as you read Roman history, these names keep coming up, so it's worth knowing the full versions. If you don't know the Roman Republican system, there are 2 consuls elected every year. They're equally in charge, and this is a stupid system for governance, but a great system for power sharing among an oligarchy, because no one consul can ever make any meaningful change because there's another guy who can say no. And they have great ways of dividing. So the way they divide up the army is entirely for them to decide. And they are consul for 1 year. It's like, right, I am going to be consul for 1 year. I need to do something important. Run at the enemy and kill them.
Wow.
It's basically what you need to do if you ever want to become famous, because you get 1 go at it. Right. So these 2 consuls, they do decide sensibly to split the army between them. They have 2 consular armies. Some groups of consuls can't agree on that. They keep the whole army together and they decide you can have it on Monday, I'll have it on Tuesday, you can have it on, and you're like, this sounds ridiculous, right? But this happened. And this happened during the Punic Wars with Roman consuls. And one guy wants to fight them and one guy doesn't want to fight them. So the army bounces up and down a river all season. There's one guy marches them one way and the other the other. But we might get onto that a little bit later. So Hannibal marches through southern Spain, or what was then Transalpine Gaul, into, and if you see there's a little dot on the River Rhone there called Massilia. Massilia is a Greek city-state in southern Gaul, and one of the Roman consuls, Scipio, has landed his army there and is then going to walk it into Spain. Our consular army is usually 2 legions and 2 allied legions. It's going to be about 25,000 guys. So he lands his army there, and Hannibal realizes that his army is there, and Hannibal recognizing that he's still a long way from either his supplies or where he wants to be, decides he's not going to fight. So he gives him the slip on the River Rhone. He moves far, far north and outflanks him and keeps moving east because that's his plan. What Hannibal doesn't know is what Scipio then does. And what Scipio does is has his army continue to advance on Spain, but he himself goes back to northern Italy to raise some new legions. This becomes important later because it influences what these men think about one another. And essentially, Hannibal feels he's given Scipio the slip. Scipio thinks that Hannibal saw Scipio and thought, "Oh, I don't want to fight him." And that is very much the wrong conclusion to have drawn from that experience. Right. So in the course of this move across southern Spain, there are lots of Gallic tribes that has to pass, and mostly he just pays them off because his job is to recruit more mercenaries and to get to northern Italy, where he's going to fight the Romans. And what he's hoping to do is to win over a lot of German client kingdoms and Gallic chieftain clients that are currently clients of the Romans, but they hate the Romans, right? Because the Romans have beat them up in the past and made them clients. So he's hoping to convert them, that they're going to fight for him. And this will work later on in the campaign. But in the early stages, they're still like, this guy's got to prove that he's actually dangerous to Rome. Yep. So there's the business about Hannibal crossing the Alps. He loses a lot of troops crossing the Alps because he doesn't get there until very late in the year. It's like September, October time. He has two major battles in the Alps where on both occasions, Gallic tribes trick him. They're like, here's some guides, here's some hostages and some winter clothes and some food, and we're going to show you through in exchange for some money, and we're going to help you fight the Romans. Yeah, and then they ambush him in the mountain passes, but he suspects this all along. And then another group does it again, the southern side of the Alps. But in both cases, he's prepared. Particularly on the second occasion, the valley is actually blocked at one end, and this is the business you might have read about, putting vinegar on the ice to break it and so forth. But knowing that he's going to be ambushed again in a narrow gorge, he's moved his baggage train to the front and put his heavy infantry at the back of the column. So when the ambushers ambush from behind, because the way is blocked, they're expecting to hit the baggage train and loot them and leave them to starve. But of course, what there's actually there is all of his elite heavy infantry. They're like, balls, this didn't work. But the conditions still take out an awful lot of the Carthaginian troops in terms of crossing the Alps. And do you want to say anything about that, Mike?
No, well, just basically Hannibal, when he's come across, he's got a core of effectively they're now veterans that fought for his father, and they're basically loyal to him. They're not. They're not loyal to Carthage. They're loyal to Hannibal. That's the one of the things, and it's one of Hannibal's. This is where he starts to really show his ability, because Hannibal's great skill is control of the battle, is control of his own troops in ancient warfare. He's able to hold his men back. He's able to convince people to fight for him, some of them. Whereas, as you'll probably see in a minute, the Romans can't really do that. And by the time he's got through the Alps, those that have survived are I wouldn't say, obviously they're quite ragged, but they are. I don't know. I can't remember how long it takes him to get across, but basically they've seen some shit together, and they're a well-bonded group of individuals. And the Romans who are they're not professional soldiers at this time. They are effectively a levy. They are raised. You will have people who have fought before, but most of them are paying for their own equipment. They're farmers. And they're being gathered together and they've been marched off to fight this guy who's basically fought for his entire life in Spain under the tutelage of his father, who keeps on going blood debt, blood debt, blood debt, and they're marching off to meet him. And bearing in mind that this guy's also got elephants, so that needs to kind of be taken into account, just simply because your average Roman farmer who's just been given a couple of pilum and a shield and told to go off, probably heard about them, but's probably never seen one. And that probably has a slightly psychological effect when they do come along later.
Yeah, so Martin, in terms of levy, the word legion and legionary is the word from which we get the term levy. The Roman army, despite what we now think of it in terms of its achievements historically, it is a militia. It is a levied army, and that levy is conducted every year. So although a particular legion will serve for a period of time, it's levied at a particular moment in time. It will fight a campaign, and then it will be disbanded. And all experience is gone. And the officers are all made up of those people I just talked about who were elected for 1 year. It's like, why are you general of this army? Just because I was elected consul. And you get elected consul because of your military experience? No, because I have more friends in the Senate.
I think I might be talking. I know you said obviously they divide, but when there's 2 consuls as well, don't they doesn't command differ every single day?
That's what consuls to decide.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do it that way. Sometimes they take different. There is a concept in this period of the consular army, which is 2 Roman legions and 2 Italian legions. You know, the other. Right. Rome is literally just Rome, the city. And so in Rome and in Italy, in this period and throughout the empire, there are Romans, there are Latins, and there are Italians, and their degrees of closeness to Roman citizenship. By the time of the empire that you'll be much more familiar with, citizenship has been given to many people throughout the empire. You have Celts as senators by that point. Roman citizenship is much more widely extended. But at this point, it's very much so. Like if you've seen the Vitrix Samnites, they're from southern Italy, right? That's the Samnites have been conquered only a generation or 2 before this. They're now allied legions. So, and what you get in Hannibal's later campaign as he moves through to southern Italy is these allied legions, they're not that willing to be allies. They're quite happy for some other guy to join another guy who's going to get Roman oppression from them. Right, so this is all the prelude to the first major fight with the Romans, which happens at, and I always struggle to say this one, Ticinus or Ticinus.
Titianus, something like that.
You just want to say titties, don't you, John?
No, because I want to also say there's one that's like pelvic thrust or something. The next one along.
Right. So, Ticinus. So remember I said to you that I pointed the map, but you can't actually see what I'm pointing at. I'm realizing now I need a tool to draw on this. Right. So Scipio, who had one of the consular armies or 4 legions, who he thinks Hannibal retreated from him. When Hannibal has crossed the Alps and he arrives in the Po Valley in western Italy, he hears that Scipio is there. And this is very, very worrying to Hannibal because he thinks, how the fuck did that guy get past me with his 4 legions? He thinks that that's the same army. And this has got 2 problems for Hannibal. One is that he's quite wary of the fact that he knows that there are now 2 consular armies in northern Italy. The one that Scipio has, which he thought was going to Spain, and the one that Longus has, which was waiting for him in this area and hadn't fully mobilized yet. So he thinks he's got 2 to beat, as he needs to find one of them quickly and destroy it. What he also doesn't know, because he doesn't realize that Scipio sent his army to Spain, is that there is a Roman consular army going to Spain. And that is going to, in the long term, actually be his undoing. The fact that Hannibal will continue to campaign successfully in Italy, but Carthage is going to lose the rest of its empire over the period of this war. Because the Romans realize they fight anybody but Hannibal is the way to win this war. So at the Battle of Ticinus, Scipio has arrived in northern Gaul. It is not the army that he raised as consul to go and fight him. So he picks up garrison troops, Gallic mercenaries, that kind of thing, gets together newly raised units, forms an army, and goes to face Hannibal as quickly as possible. And a skirmish, fundamentally, between mostly on the Roman side, mostly veletae, which is their light infantry, their javelin men, the guys with the wolf pelts. This you don't see them in the Republic in the Imperial period, but in this period, that's the light infantry and the Roman cavalry. And at this period, Roman cavalry is especially tricky because Roman cavalry is made up of like Rome's merchant class. They're called equites. So there's only about 300 cavalry in a legion of 5,000 men. So there's not a lot of Roman cavalry, and they're also all quite important people. And what that means, and they're not necessarily military people, they're the merchant class, but it's because you have to provide your own equipment. Wealthy people have to provide.
They're the only ones that can buy a horse.
Yeah, but it means they're not actually very reliable as cavalry either. These are people who have got something to live for, you know.
Yeah, got something to lose.
They're not scum. They're not in the army because it's a way of improving their life chances or anything like that. So they're actually, not only is there a small amount of it, it's not actually that good. Running down some tribesmen, yeah, they're great at that. But fighting a pitched battle against dedicated horsemen, was the Carthaginian army, presumably largely because it is an African plains army. It has a very high proportion of cavalry, very good cavalry. Particularly, we get repeated references to the Numidian cavalry. It's quite hard to imagine, I think, today, because they don't have bridles, they don't have stirrups, and these guys move really fast on horses without falling off whilst throwing javelins. There's a huge amount of skill in these, and indeed the Roman army will adopt, after it defeats Carthage, will take Numidians into the Roman army.
Oh, spoiler!
Oh, sorry, yeah. Rome wins the war. Yeah, you didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But Hannibal has a good period. So in this initial skirmish, what happens is it's basically something escalates from a foraging skirmish, and the Romans Scipio deploys his veletae in front of his cavalry with the intention that they're going to get a volley off with their javelins. They're going to fall back and the horses are all going to charge. But the Carthaginian cavalry is a great deal faster because it's a bit lighter, and the veletae they don't get a single volley off. They fall back, and the two lines crash.
Run away bravely.
Yeah.
Well, in this instance, not. But this is probably where they learn it. It's the first major class of cavalry, and so it's mostly actually the Gallic and Iberian cavalry in his army that fight these Roman cavalry. And in the accounts, they talk about it's not the kind of swirling. They don't clash and push through. There's a melee that goes on for a period of time with many of the riders dismounting and fighting with sword and shield on foot because it's more effective in the way that the fighting is taking place. But back to what Martin was saying there, the superior command and control of a commander like Hannibal is what really pays off here, because he's been holding the Numidians back. He's deployed them behind his main line. They're slightly smaller, lighter guys, so they're not obvious to the Romans. And once this melee is happening, the Numidians encircle the Roman position. This light infantry screen that's fallen back behind the cavalry is quickly overrun by the Numidians, who then attack the Roman cavalry from behind, and it turns into a bloodbath, which is something that happens a lot when the Romans fight Hannibal, by the way. Spoilers for later. And Scipio, not only is his army is completely demoralized with significant casualties, and it flees the field, which is something that Roman armies do not do. Scipio himself is very seriously wounded as part of this. But it isn't that big an engagement. But what it does do is Scipio has fought Hannibal and has been punched in the face and got a broken nose and has gone, right, I'm going to be a bit more wary of this dick in future.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's also nearly dead.
He's also the sensible consul, which leaves
the smart one.
leaves I've forgotten his name, Longus. And,
Longus Dickus.
Yeah.
You can get Numidians. There's some nice Numidian cavalry from Vitrix actually. Yeah. And there's some nice Iberian cavalry from Vitrix as well. Yeah. So that's
as far as I got in those videos you linked me. I must say that you missed out a few things. There was a garrison of grain that Hannibal managed to join.
And why is it that what is it that causes that granary at that
because
city.
they're southern tribesmen that have been posted up north near the Alps, and they're like, do you know what? We fucking hate the Romans. So yeah.
But when does it happen?
Before that fight with Scipio on the Po River near Pancreas, or whatever it's called.
It happens after this fight.
Placentia. That's what it's called. Placentia is the other village.
So what John alluded to, one of the things that happens in the aftermath of this, Scipio's army falls back, waiting for the other consul Longus to arrive. Hannibal needed a quick victory because his army's still pretty ragged. It's just come down from the Alps. These guys, they've not had fresh fruit and vegetables for ages, and so forth. But now Hannibal has demonstrated he can beat the Romans in the field. The Gallic tribes start coming over to him, and there's a major granary town, a food supply dump town in the area, whose commander is from Brundisium, which is one of these southern Italian client kingdoms. And I think he gets like 300 gold coins or something. And not only does he hand over all the food, which Hannibal desperately needs, they join the army. They're like, okay, you're going to kick the Romans out. Let's do it. Let's get it back. And that happens in the aftermath of this. Meanwhile, consul number 2, the not smart one, bearing in mind how well the smart one did, is, what was his name? Longus, Tiberius Sempronius Longus. He gets a lot of criticism in Livy because he is novus homo, which doesn't mean massive gaylord, John. It means new man. New what? New man?
It means new man.
So he's new not... Man. With usually by the later Republican period, when they elect these 2 consuls every year, they generally, although not always, will elect one from an old traditional patrician family, but they'll elect another one from a new family that isn't already a member of the Senate. It doesn't always happen, and there's a lot of stigma attached to it, and they're considered, like dangerous, volatile people, and they don't like to take them too seriously. So Longus is novus homo. He's a new man. He is absolutely desperate to achieve something. And what he knows about Scipio is Scipio didn't actually have his legions there. Scipio just had a load of garrison troops and light infantry and Gallic cavalry and dross. And I've got a real legion. And Scipio's dying, by the way, but saying, no, mate, this guy's smart, honestly. Don't do it. So Scipio's army camps in the Po Valley, which is a river valley in northern Italy, where he's kind of protected on 3 sides in his camp, so he can't be outflanked. He's been outflanked and nearly died because of it. He's not going to let that happen again. But Longus is not going to do that. Longus is about 3 or 4 miles away, sets up his camp with his army entirely separately. And they set up either side of the river Trebia. So on over here, from where you're looking, over here is Hannibal. Up there, he's got his camp, and the Romans are down here and here, right? And there's a river. It's so hard doing it back to the front. There's a river here, the Trebia. So the Romans on the opposite side of the Trebia to the Carthaginians, and the Carthaginians are several miles back from the river, because Hannibal has picked his ground. He wants this good ground for cavalry, and they've got loads of space to outflank them, but they're going to cross a pissing river before we fight. So the day before what is the Battle of Trebia, which is in December, by the way, this is winter, and this is why Martin's figures are the way they are. The day before, Hannibal sends out his light cavalry to go and burn the Gallic villages along the river. And he does this to bait the Romans out, because the Romans are supposed to be protecting these guys. They're client kings. So the Romans then send out some skirmishes themselves to try and drive the Carthaginians back. And this scales up during the course of the day. It goes from a few hundred guys to many hundreds to a few thousand. And then Hannibal comes out and says, this is actually turning into a battle, which I'm not in control of, and I'm not having that. So he goes out and pulls his troops back. But what he's done during the course of that day is he's dragged all of the Roman skirmish troops out of their bases, wading through chest deep in frozen water, made them fight all day and throw all of their javelins. This is going to be quite important on day 2 when he's going to fight the real battle, because they haven't got no javelins and they spent yesterday chest deep in ice cold water. Before the break of dawn the next day, Hannibal's Numidian cavalry attack the Roman camp of Longus. And they attack the Roman camp. The Romans are literally forming up within the camp in front of their tents, having javelins and torches thrown at them. And the Numidians almost immediately fall back. The Roman light infantry chase them, but they don't really have the missile weapons to do it. But what he's done is he's depriving these guys of their breakfast, and he's getting them to walk through that ice-cold river again.
Isn't there some record of them like setting cooking fires or something nearby so the Romans could just smell food as well?
Yeah. It's all like that kind of. It's like, so what he's doing is he's trying to leave every possible advantage before they have the major battle. So during the course of the morning, the Roman army, Longus sends the army to cross the Trebia, which they do. They cross the Trebia again. They wade through the whole army. But if you remember, I said Scipio told him he shouldn't fight. You see, Longus's legions are newly raised. Scipio's legions, which are in Spain, were actually veteran legions, but the ones they've got here are this year's recruits. And Scipio's like, I think we need to train these guys over the winter, fight this guy in the good weather. So anyway, he's marched his army yet again through this ice-cold river, no food, no missile weapons. And then when the main fight starts, essentially the same thing has happened in the previous battle is going to happen again. The Roman skirmishers are beaten because they've got no missile weapons. The Roman heavy infantry, what the Romans are very good at, is getting a big block of heavy infantry, marching it straight through the middle of your line, chopping everything up, and then setting fire to your baggage train and camp. They can do that. They can do that all day long. The thing is, Hannibal knows that. He spent a whole life learning how to fight the Romans. So he's put all of his new Gallic mercenaries and these client kings that he's turned, they're all in the middle. And he doesn't care about them. It's like, these guys are going to be here. All of my elite Iberian and African infantry are on the flanks, and my Numidians are behind them. The Romans come in and then just get swallowed up. He loses about 3,000 men, and the Romans lose about 4 legions. And that is the Battle of Trebia. Hannibal will go on to do this time after time after time against the Romans, and this war lasts a very, very long time, and you can see why.
Until they learn to stay in their walls, basically. It just became a point where they're just they're all sitting in their walls, and Hannibal is just rampaging around Italy, and all the Romans are just in their towns. He's just walking around Italy, and then eventually Scipio's son comes along, and things change.
Scipio Africanus.
Subs is right on the button there, because the other thing that he's done at this battle is there's a dry riverbed on the southern side of the battlefield, and as the Numidian cavalry come to outflank the Romans, there's 2,000 hand-picked men that jump behind them as well. So that is
nice. But I think Subs was commenting on the Battle of Thermopylae, but I think
right.
He did forget
that. Yeah. Right, so that's that. But I did want to show you some pictures. So that, do you know what? I'm so smart in it. Look, I had a picture of the bloody battle, didn't I?
That's the picture you were going to show us, Mike.
That was the picture I was going to show you.
Here's what he prepared earlier.
This is from Wikipedia.
That's fine. It's Creative Commons. There's no issue with it.
No. Right. Anyway, let's talk about Martin's pictures, though. Can you see this? Look at this. Hey. So tell us what we're looking at.
Arrows.
So yeah, basically, when I
look like Romans, mate.
Yeah, they've stolen loads of Roman equipment. What I wanted to do was when I looked at people's Carthaginian armies, and they all looked amazing, but they're always done for the Battle of Zama or Cannae. It's all done in the summer, and I really like everyone's bolt action Battle of the Bulge armies, and I wasn't going to do that, but I thought, well, there was this whole campaign in the winter, which in the ancient warfare is basically normally you go to winter quarters and you don't fight in the winter, just for the reason that it's, there's cold water. And I just thought how it would just be a lot of fun to basically do. So what I did was I got the Victrix set and I green stuffed on I don't know if you can see, but because I've put on cloaks on them.
So I've done
fur collars and stuff,
and added cloaks onto them. Yeah, and then the guy next to him with the black shield, that's the cloaks.
Wow.
So, but I also got some of the Victrix Gallic heads. So I've added in some heads for these, people who haven't had a shave and they've come down from the from the mountains. But yeah, but I based them up for 2 systems. So I based them for Hail Caesar because I don't mind having massive units. So I think there's 16 models on that base. But I've also for the game Impetus, which basically because of the type of warfare I'm trying to depict, I thought that game would be a lot of fun. And basically I went, so they're Hannibal's veterans. So they're the guys who've been campaigning in Spain with him. There is loyal troops all the way. Yeah, so there is sort of the hardcore.
What's with the Dalek? What's with the Daleks and the Carthaginians? Why is there a Dalek on the shield? Was that a thing back then?
It means Tanit.
Oh, Tanit. Tanit's there is basically their deity.
Or is that Baal? What if you see on this one?
That's Tanit.
Here,
that's Tanit.
One of them's circly and one of them's upright.
The upright one is Tanit.
The upright. Right. This is Tanit and this is Baal.
Yeah, so Tanit is their deity. They have shrines and things everywhere. That's the god that apparently they sacrifice babies to in the Tophet, but there's other opinion that the Tophet is actually just a baby cemetery. There he is.
Oh, look at that!
Whoa!
I mean, is that not beautiful? You want one, right? Advantage.co.uk.
I basically did what ultimately I was like, I can do icicles hanging off of the elephant to in my army. So I can, and the great thing is with the Victrix set, you get the veterans, the Libyan infantry, and the skirmishers all in one bag. So I could do those skirmishers running around the feet of the elephant. And I don't know if they had that massive spear, but it looked cool, so I was gonna it makes sense that they would have a big pokey stick. Yeah, but and then those are the standard Libyan infantry or Libyan style infantry, so they're they're his standard troops.
So these are your Carthaginian citizen infantry, your Libo-Phoenician.
Yeah.
And you could paint these pretty much however you like in terms of the flesh. Like I said before, these could be black, Middle Eastern, European, because we don't exactly know, but it was very much a blended culture.
But there's the battle line in the game that I played with them all. But as you say, you put like the equipment is really similar to the Romans. They are at the same time. That's what I painted last October. I did like an Ancients October thing. So that's what I did in October last year. And then skirmishers at the front. So you get those 2 elephants. That's 2 units of Libyan infantry. And what I've now done about minus the elephants about 3 times that amount, but I haven't actually put it all out to take a photo. But they're great fun. But the great thing about big bases is that it's very easy to make an army look like an army, because I like, and if you see my channel, you'll know I rank troops up, but not perfectly ranked, if that makes sense. I prefer a mass. I like people breaking formation or gathering around a banner and stuff like that. So
hands up if you know what Friends of General Haig is talking about. Showing your age, my friend. That's WRG6, regular B-class heavy infantry with long thrusting spear and shield. Mate, that's a long time ago.
Oh dear. But yeah, so I've also since then I've done a commander. I haven't actually done Hannibal yet because I'm actually trying to find a model where I think I'm gonna have to green stuff it, because eventually after the battle he got an infection in his eye going through a swamp, so he cuts his eye out. You're
gonna have to paint the eyes if you're doing Hannibal, mate.
He cuts his eye out because he's born again hard, and blood debt and every blood debt. There you go. And so I wanted to do that, and but what I've got as well So up here, my big box of Victrix, I've got because I'm doing the opposing side. I'm doing the Romans as well with the maniple system, and I'm going to be doing them in big bases. So because I know Kaiser, you've got a thing about the maniple system and how it's represented in how you can do it in wargaming well. But the only way I can think to do it to any kind of set is basically I will have like a lot of say Triarii on one base. Then you'll have the Hastati and then the Principe, and I can actually line them up in the maniple system. The way it works, but obviously
so what Martin is alluding to, because in the Republican Roman army, which is what this is, this period, this is the height of the Republic, is the Roman army is deployed in 4 lines, and war games rarely let you gain any benefit from fighting deep. You have the Velite in the front, you have the Hastati in the front line, and they're like the new guys. They're the young guys, and they're probably, in many cases, they're just going to have a tunic and a steel plate with leather straps.
Basically, the more experienced you are, the further back you get to start.
But the thing is also the proportions, you see. So the Hastati and Principe are roughly equal numbers, but there's half as many Triarii, which is spearmen, and they're at the back, and there's half as many of them. And what that means, when you try and line them out, they actually end up being a really thin line, which looks ridiculous for a spear unit to be really thin. And if you play a game where there's no benefits in being deep, you end up with this odd spear unit to one side that doesn't work like the rest of your army. Well, no, because it's the rallying point for your army. It's they're going to finish the battle. If we're winning, they're going to turn it into a big victory, and if we're losing, they're going to stand firm while the rest of us run like. that's what they do, But yeah,
but no, that's the that's the start of the Carthaginian side. I need to take some more photos because it's a project that I've been working on for about a year, but I just I work on it and I don't put a lot of it on the channel. It's kind of my project for myself, if that makes sense.
I was about to say.
So I did the Ancients October thing last year. What do I use to make? Oh Jesus! I went through a very long process of trying to find the right snow, and I ended up with this stuff here, which is called Chrysel Superior Scale Model Snow Effects, and it comes in this lovely packet.
Wow.
Looks like really expensive coffee, or as my colleagues on the Plastic Crack podcast say, the best Colombian model snow money can buy. And that's because this stuff it's actually got like little glass crushed glass in it, so it will, you can't really see it, obviously you can't see it, but it twinkles. And you can as it's drying, I would get the elephants, for example, and I push their footprints into it before it hardens up. So I haven't done it from behind them, but behind them you can actually push the footprints in, and it actually settles. And when you buy this snow pack, it comes with like a shaker, so you can put it on. And it was I did go through that whole phase. I was like, I'm gonna make a really elaborate base, and I just chuck snow all over it. So since then I was like, why have I bothered doing that? That was cool, but they've mostly been done with contrast paints. All of that.
That's crazy good.
We probably should mention the decals for anyone that doesn't. That's not freehand. Those shields, is it?
No, I wish it was. No, they're as with pretty much everything that Victrix released, they're from Little Big Men Studios, and they're about £4 a pack. So each of those bases is about £4 worth of transfers, but they're just so nice,
and authentic.
They do good research, and they're easy to work with. I'd love to be able to spend the elephant. I don't forget the elephant back up, but the transfer set is for the howdah and the cloth on the side. I can't really see it, but yeah, if you look behind the guy driving it, you can see you see all of those. So they're all from Little Big Men as well.
Wow!
To fit. It's almost painful putting the snow effect on it. to cover it, but
it looks good, man. You've done good.
Guys, missing a piece of equipment.
The spike to kill the elephant.
You see, it's got a spike in one hand. That spike he's got in his right hand is to drive into the elephant's skull if the elephant.
That's harsh.
Yeah, but in the other hand, he's supposed to have a mallet to actually get it into its skull.
He's got a helmet. He'll just headbutt it in. I'm sure.
Just headbutt it in.
Yeah, no, it's those elephant kits are just great fun to paint. But yeah, it's just built up layers of contrast paint and then just some standard. The flesh I always do in a standard way, but they're just great fun to work on. I really want to do more elephants now. You've shown
you're
this.
Saying this?
Do it.
This whole howdah, this tower, you've like wallpapered on these decals, right?
Yeah,
that's part of the set.
Yeah. So you have to buy the decals separate, and there's quite a lot of choices. So they've got, so as you said, they've got Ptolemaic, Roman,
Numidian,
Carthaginian, and you've got the sets for all of those. And the next thing for the project, which is what's up here, I've got a lot of Gauls, and that's because they can be used as mercenaries for either the Romans or the Carthaginians. So I just bought loads of the armored Gauls because I don't want to paint loads of flesh. And I know it's cold, it's winter, I figured armor. And that's the other thing about the battle. I was just trying to, it's not something I've done, but the idea that like basically one army is soaking wet, freezing cold, hungry, and then 40 odd elephants come charging at them. It should be pointed out as well that one elephant survives. And then Hannibal takes that as like his personal. Well, I
think it's maybe one. Definitely the major losses at this battle of most of the elephants. We know one survives. We're not sure if any more did.
Yeah, it's the one, and then Hannibal basically rides around on it, and that's how he's. And this battle then goes on to one that's even probably more. I say, when the Battle of Lake Tresemme, which is an even bigger ambush, an even bigger slaughter, because the Romans just don't learn their lesson. But it's a brand new console by that point, I think. Hannibal keeps on going, and every year it's like, who's the next contestant?
What the hell?
But if you want to talk about seeds of destruction, the most important person at those two battles that I just mentioned is Scipio Publicus's son, and he is another Scipio Publicus, but he will become Scipio Aemilianus Africanus, who will be the man who destroys Carthage. He gets to see how good Hannibal is and learns from it. Just about the only Roman commander that will, because about 15 years from now we'll get his own army as he's older, and
that's how long. And he's rampaging around, and then ultimately Carthage basically goes, no, Hannibal's nothing to do with us. No, he was doing his own thing. And they basically tell the Romans where Hannibal flees to, and Hannibal kills himself before the Romans can take him. And then the Romans go, but do you know what? We're just going to annihilate Carthage. And they do. They salt the earth. They pull it down. They massacre the population. And that's how Rome becomes the power in the Mediterranean. All of that trade, all of that power, the Romans then take. And then that's how we end up. That made the Roman Republic, basically what it is, or what it became.
See that map that we showed you right at the beginning? That's the Roman Republic in 218 BC. All of this will be orange within red within 100 years. Everything you can see there.
Crazy.
The bit on the bottom won't be, because that's the Sahara Desert, and they don't conquer the Sahara Desert because there's nothing but scorpions there, mate. But everything else on the screen is red within 100 years.
That's it. So I do hope I'm gonna now you've done it, I'm gonna have to get the Victrix box out and get painting some Gauls. But yeah, it's a big project I want to do, because I figured if you're going to do Carthaginians, I've got to do it big. I can't do it skirmish. I've got to do it.
Hannibal's armies tend to be larger than the Roman armies, but with less well-equipped guys. But that army that we just talked about there, it's got Gauls in it, it's got Iberians in it, it's got Africans in it, it's got Carthaginians in it, and it's got Greek mercenaries in it. It's got Balearic slingers in it.
It's basically everyone that hates Rome is in this army.
Everyone that hates Rome, or is
including other Italians. You know, and that's the thing, and that's another reason why I kind of like picked it to start with. Is like, if I get bored of painting this, I'll just move on and I'll paint some Iberians, or I'll paint some Numidian cavalry. That's the only thing I haven't done is cavalry. I haven't done any cavalry yet. I've just got loads of infantry, which is, it's a problem because they had a lot of cavalry.
True fact.
But you will get it done. Dead elephants. Well, I don't know. We did actually have the Tophet conversation. I think last week, was it? We talked about Carthaginians sacrificing babies. It did come up recently. I don't think they did either, Martin. But you're the archaeologist. If there was time, next time you're on, we'll talk about Tophet, and you can tell us the archaeologist perspective. we're 10 minutes over time. I do apologize. It was mostly me waffling.
It was worth it.
I hope. Well, we've done it a few times before where we've talked a little bit about some history, and I know many of you already knew it, but I don't know. It's like watching a documentary. Like sometimes it's worth listening to it again, right?
Sure.
It's been great to have Martin. Where did we get to? I painted one set of wheels on this. Got one coat of one set of wheels. John?
Painted 5 hoods on these Chaos Monk dudes. That's it,
Monks.
in various colours of brown. That's it.
Very nice. Martin, how far did you get?
I've got most of the camouflage done on the top of my Jihad tank.
That is some progress. Yeah. Because it was white at the beginning of the session, or grey, wasn't it?
I use bone flesh spray as my undercoat for everything.
Yeah, nice. Martin, any progress?
I've painted everything but the chainmail on these Normans because I decided to do the armor last and do all the straps and stuff first for some reason.
Oh, wow.
But it seems to work a lot easier. So yeah, so they should be done by tomorrow, hopefully.
Whoa.
Nice. When does Dumbo appear? All right.
Elephant Air Force.
We did a poll a while back about the kind of what kind of content do people like, and the kind of war stories was pretty much the top answer. So it's always, although it's difficult to sort of work out the West West because mostly you've listened to me talk tonight and a little bit of Martin and very little from anybody else. So maybe we'll have that conversation again sometime. But this is a nice format to do it rather than making a video. In terms of it can involve more people, which I think is and other opinions.
It's always more fun to be informal with when you're talking about history because they buggered off, they ran away.
And you're allowed to get things wrong because you forgot, right? I read Livy about 25 years ago.
When I first met Kaiser on the Isle of Wight many years ago, we used to go out for a meal, and then the meal would be an hour, and then it'd be 4 hours of discussion about some historical topic. It was just great fun.
We need to do that. Yeah. We need to do that again. And the other reason I wanted to do it with Martin was Martin mentioned a while ago about a new style of show, which was a bit more kind of history talk or battle talk. And this was one format I thought was worth experimenting with. And Martin and I can talk about another time. But anyway, Martin, you tell them, remind them where they can find you.
You can find me at Seventh Son, on YouTube, and you can find me on the Plastic Crack podcast on Mondays. Who was that? What happened? You can find us in the Plastic Crack podcast Facebook group as well, where if you can come along and share lots of photos and things. But I'm on YouTube, and come along and have a look, and hopefully I should probably film a Carthaginian battle report soon, because it mostly seems to be Black Powder and Wars to Roses.
What you haven't mentioned, I think, now I come to think about it, is who you tend to play in your battle reports.
That's for a specific reason. I play my wife a lot.
And she's a lot better at rolling sixes than Martin is.
It's because she's better at rolling sixes, and she's not attached to the models because she didn't paint them, so she doesn't care about throwing them into the enemy. Whereas I'm like, no, I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose them. My precious Nellies, Whereas they're going to get obliterated. We're currently playing, and there's another one coming up. We're doing Test of Honor, and we're doing the campaign. And I was trying to be well sneaky with where I was putting my samurai, whereas Haley just charged in and won. And my guys now, because it's a campaign play, is now grievously wounded, and her guy's got all sorts of honor and resources heaped upon him, and we go into the next game, and I think I had to start the game wounded and crawling across the board, I think is what the stats
It's a bit like our SPQR, John.
I was just going to say that. Sounds like Johnny's heroes.
Yeah. Heroes. Yeah, man.
Heroes to zeros, I think we'll say.
Well, so I didn't manage to get it up in time for the latest SPQR to be last week's video. The people who were members through the YouTube platform have had a preview of it. It will be out on Sunday, and it does feature a new Gallic hero, unpopular with the troops. He's called Belendrix. And we've already identified the model for the future druid character, who will be called Viagrix. Because the game isn't that great, but naming the characters is awesome.
Yeah,
I've gone down that line for my SPQR, but I've stuck with Latin. So my hero is going to be Acellus Gallus, and Acellus is Roman for donkey, and Gallus is mount chicken.
Right,
you gotta love the names. I mean, we haven't done any named characters and things yet, but in our Dungeons and Dragons campaign, my friend's fighter is called Hadron the Collider.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's it from us this week. So it'll be SPQR Battle 3 out on Friday. John and I are still practicing Kill Team. You will see a video of it one day when we feel we know what we're doing. We're also hoping to go to Selwig if any of you are going to be there. We talked about it, haven't we, John? We're not committed to it, but we might
massively dependent on me. Yes, but yes, it would be nice.
So
that's if you're not all at CrackCon.
It's the day before. It's the day before.
The day before.
You can go to both. Yeah, you can do both.
The CrackCon guys might turn up drunk or hungover. In the corner with an orange juice. Roll those dice more quietly, please. Right. That's it from us. Martin, thank you so much for coming and talking with us. It's been a real pleasure. And to the rest of you, take care and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.